Howdy, folks. I want to correct some information that I had kind of wrong but kind of right. There is a huge misunderstanding, and it's due to the news outlets that report this way. People believe Colonel Sanders lived until his death in 1980 in Canada. That's untrue. Now, previously, I actually believed and thought, based on all the information that I had, that Uncle Harley lived primarily in Canada from 1964 to 1973. I thought his primary residence was there. That's the part I'm wrong about. See, his primary residence was always in Kentucky, but by 1973 to 74, he had moved from Shelbyville to LA Grange Road, just outside Louisville. The fried chicken entrepreneurial king lived in Mississauga, Canada, from the 1960s and 1970s, 4 months annually out of the year. The rest of the year, he lived in Kentucky. He also had a vacation home in Tampa, Florida, and allegedly, I haven't actually seen this from my family, but from somebody else that knew the colonel, that he had a home in California as well. But his primary residence was Kentucky. By 1973, he was done with KFC Canada with the ownership and maintaining the quality. He stayed on as the goodwill ambassador of the brand. But in 1972, he gave his franchises to charity. He was becoming too old to maintain everything himself, and he decided to give it to charity because nobody in the family wanted it. And according to a mail carrier that lives in Mississauga and knew the colonel and delivered his mail there at his house on Melton Drive, his daughters and his wife would occasionally, after he moved out of Canada and moved back to Kentucky, would occasionally have it as a summer home. They stayed there for the summer and spring. And for those wondering, this was his home in Tampa, Florida. That's my cousin Karen, one of his nieces, and the colonel, in Tampa, Florida, as vacation home. He lived there for a certain time for vacation, but it wasn't his primary residence. Now, a lot of people will be watching this like, who cares where he lived, right? And he was a famous guy, traveled all over. I just want the most accurate information. I'm tired of people exaggerating things for clout and click, and I want the most accurate information. He did not live in Canada until 1980. He owned the home and he visited. And after all the research that I have done to see when he actually lived in Canada, I have finally come across an article from 1967. And really, it's covering an article from 1967. I don't know what year this was actually written because it talks about the 1970s, but it is referring to a flyer about see Colonel Sanders in the Grey Cup Parade, Scott's Chicken Villa. And here's a little bit more of information about him going to the Canadian franchises and the United States franchises and criticizing their kitchen, calling their stuff slop and wallpaper paste. The manager would claim that he was just following orders, and Uncle Harley would gently reply, "It's not your fault. You're just working for a company that doesn't know what it's doing." And those criticisms led him to get sued by a franchisee in Kentucky, which got thrown out of court. This is a great article from WordPress.com, and I'm going to post it on my threads, and I'm going to post it in the Discord so that you could watch or read. There's some videos in there. You could read all about it. It has a lot of history in there that is accurate. In any of the Canadian, mainly the Toronto Old Series, any of these news articles in Canada that want to talk about stories of Uncle Harley, look at this article. Look at the WordPress article and then do your story, because this is the most accurate one out of Canada that I have seen.